Newly elected to the King County Council in November in District Number 3, Sarah Perry comes to the council as a dedicated leader, small business owner, and seasoned executive in nonprofit and government sectors. Sarah will chair the Local Services and Land Use Committee, which oversees county roads and bridges, zoning, permitting, and unincorporated areas. Perry has a long list of priorities, but in her own words, she'll start by listening to others who are already doing the work and by bringing people together to solve the issues facing the people of King County. Hi, I'm Tony Ventrella. It gives me great pleasure to interview the newest member of the King County Council, Sarah Perry. Sarah? Good to see you.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you.
I am so, by the way, beautiful weather here in Issaquah today.
Wonderful.
And it's
Confluence Park, yeah.
It's like this every day of the year.
Oh,
isn't
absolutely.
It?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. That's what my records show. Well, I have seen, I've read up on you a little bit, Sarah, and I know that you have been an activist for years, involved in your community, and I'm curious to know when that started. Have you always been that way? When you were a 7-year-old, were you gathering people and talking about things? When did that start?
Sure, yeah. You know, I moved every year growing up, and I learned very early on the power of community, how strong community is, how critical it is for all of us to do well. And it was is something that formed in me early on. So no matter what I've done, what I really do is to engage people in their community. And it doesn't really matter what the community is. I just know the power of that, and it's in my marrow.
And now you move on to King County Council as a new member. Now there's a community right there. You're talking multi-cities.
Yeah.
And 8 other members of the county council. What are your first thoughts on sort of dealing with that community?
Yeah. Well, that's a big question. So there are 10 cities and surrounding areas in our district with redistricting. So we have Issaquah, Sammamish, Redmond, Woodinville now, 3 blocks of Bothell, Duval, Carnation, Snoqualmie with Falls City, Preston, North Bend, Skykomish, and Snoqualmie Pass. So it's huge. And I am very excited to work with each of the mayors. I'm meeting with each of them once a month to understand what's happening with their particular community. I'm also meeting with each of the police chiefs every other month, each of the fire chiefs every other month, and community groups. So a lot of what I'm doing is really listening to many of the different community groups right now and hearing what they want to see happen. And of course, you know, my focus areas are housing, transit, the environment, and behavioral health. So I always have an ear to that.
So if you're talking behavioral health, housing, transit, the environment, seems to me there might be a connection there.
Right. You know, again, it comes back to community. So if folks can live and work and play and learn in the same community, that is so rich. Everybody has an opportunity to participate where they are. That means that we need housing that our teachers can afford, that our grocery clerks can afford, and we need to have transit that allows our community to get to the businesses so the businesses thrive and to get to their jobs. And that takes some careful planning. And you know, COVID has given us a bit of a silver lining in that way. We may be planning no longer in terms of ridership, in terms of the when the rush hour happens, because that's changing with our hybrid jobs. So now the entire Snoqualmie Valley has a stronger seat at the table to talk about how are we looking at this as a value? How can we all access public transit, shuttles and alternatives and options maybe we haven't thought about before? So I'm very excited about working together with folks to look at transit, to look at our impact on the environment, how we can affect that, so we're all around for lots of generations.
Well, that's a good point. On the other hand, COVID has created some opportunities for sure, but some obstacles as well when it comes to community. Because the community we're all used to and we're spoiled by has gone away the last couple of years. And are we, at some point, hopefully, we'll be creeping back to where we can actually meet in person and all that. And how are you dealing with that challenge these last?
Well, you know, to your point also about how it's all connected, certainly, COVID has broken down our community connections, and the isolation has had a devastating effect on some folks. And we have to make sure that we are taking the extra steps through our telehealth for our kiddos, reaching out to our seniors, doing things like this outside whenever we can. We do know that the outdoor opportunities and experiences for our district especially have just exploded, which is wonderful. We have to make sure we're doing it well, taking care of our trails and waterways and all of that, but there's been a renewed energy in being outside, which I think really helps the mental health and the physical health all the way around.
I have a feeling that once we are out of COVID, or at least removed from it a little bit more than we have been in the last couple of years, people will embrace the idea of getting together, of working together, of trying to at least agree enough to go in the same direction.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And I sometimes I'm known for disappointing everyone equally, because I really believe the path forward is together, and I am passionate, but I don't fight just to fight. I really believe in the power of making things happen for people and changing lives in that way. So we don't always have to agree to do that. It's like a good marriage.
Well, no, that's a good point. That leads me to a question about working with the other council members, all of whom will not agree at every single meeting. That's just a wild guess.
Yes.
If someone is directly opposed to an idea, how do you work with that? Do you have a meeting separately?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What do you do?
Well, I'm doing the very strange thing of asking each of the council members to come on over for dinner or lunch.
Good.
So really trying to, because I don't come from the legislature, and half of the council members do.
Yeah.
So they know each other. I don't. And so really working on building those relationships. I had a terrific meeting with PVR, on Pete von Reichbauer Street. Yes. And Reagan Dunn. And of course, I had the wonderful opportunity to meet Girmay, Councilmember Zahalai, for the very first time just a month and a half ago. So that was great. He's doing some amazing work. Claudia Balducci, Councilmember Dembowski, just everybody, Dave Upthegrove, Joe McDermott, and Jeannie Colwells, all of the council members have individually reached out to me, every single one of them, to say hello, to welcome me, and I just feel so, it's exhilarating to be there. Everybody's been very kind, and to a person, how can I help? What is it that you need? Don't hesitate to reach out.
Kind of like you mentioned a marriage and being married, being a parent, you set an example for your children. I want this to come out the right way. As a council member, working together with other council members whose opinions don't always lock with yours, working together successfully, is that not a good example for a society that frankly is a little bit split the last few years? Sure,
yeah. And so what I do in those settings where we completely disagree, and we will, I really like Joe McDermott, like him a lot, but he told me very early on, we're going to disagree strongly on some things, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I had that same conversation with Pete von Reichbauer. And what I would do is find the areas that we can agree, and where we don't agree, each of us are there for a reason. We're voted into that role by our constituents to represent them, and that's what we each need to do. And sometimes we end up on opposite sides because of that. That doesn't mean we don't have to be respectful. That doesn't mean we're not civil. It doesn't mean we don't like and respect each other. Quite the opposite. Yeah. So I have found this entire council to be incredibly respectful, and I'm looking forward to the agreements as well as the disagreements. They actually seem to have fun with it. They talk about a tennis game.
Well, I think it's a very, very healthy attitude. In the couple minutes we have left, I want to spend at least 1.5 maybe on behavioral health. Very important issue. Obviously, you're passionate about that. You were talking about some of the resources needed to improve how law enforcement teams up with behavioral health experts to get in and help people.
Well, Issaquah is doing this now. I know that some of the other cities, I know North Bend and Snoqualmie, are looking at pairing up law enforcement with some behavioral health specialists. Our challenge right now, we have a crisis line that you may call. And these are, the folks that are struggling with behavioral health. These are our family, our friends, our community members. They're not going to go away, and we need to help whatever is going on for them chemically, just a chemical balance, whatever's going on. We need it to be just a blip in the screen and help them get on to successful, stable lives. And we can do that, right? But right now, if you call the crisis line, they'll get back to you in 24 hours. Yeah. And you're in a crisis. Yeah. We need more staffing. When they do get back with you, they say they'll send someone out in a week or two because of staffing. Yeah. We have our officers that are trained in behavioral health who can show up at these different calls with 2 DCR personnel, so they're folks that help our the behavioral health and the ambulance. They're all there together, but if they don't have the training, it's a lot less likely that that person who needs our help will actually end up getting into the ambulance.
Yeah.
They get into the ambulance. If they do, of the 60 orders that the judge puts out there every day for folks to go on out, 3 or 4 go to the hospital.
Oh boy.
So they get to the hospital, the emergency room, COVID notwithstanding, is full.
Yeah.
So they look at the person and they evaluate them and they say, you're not a danger to yourself right now or others, you can go. So after all this time, and these folks, they need weeks or months of stabilization so that they'll be okay. But if they don't get it, it just costs them, their family, and all of us so much on so many levels.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then if they are able to stay and get a little bit stable, Fairfax doesn't have the beds and they don't have the support personnel that they need. So in each of these different areas, we have an opportunity to look at those broken links, to look at who's doing it well, which state is really doing this well, and find out how we can emulate that. What does it look like? And come together. We're smart. We can do this.
Sure. Excellent points, Sarah. Thank you so much. You know what we're going to do? We're going to flip the switch on you now, and you get to ask me a question. Any question in the world, I'll answer it in about 5 or 10 seconds by saying, I don't know. Go ahead. It's your turn.
Are we going to keep Russell Wilson?
You know, I was the first person in the Northwest to interview Russell Wilson when I was with the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, no
What a
kidding.
delightful guy, always has been.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say yes, he is going to stay.
Yeah?
And the Seahawks next year will have a record of 12 and 5, is that 17? And go to the playoffs.
Okay.
And get into the second round. They'll win the first game and probably not the second game.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah. And anyone watching, I'll meet you at Emerald Downs and I'll pick the 5th race. Sarah Perry, King County Council, it has been a pleasure meeting you and speaking with you. Have a great run as County Council member. You'll do great.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
See you next time.